may have been someone who has been targeted, but I am not fearful. I am fearless, and I will continue to walk into the office of the New York State Attorney General and again protect the residents and protect them from any harms coming from the federal government.
So it always seems like mainstream media acts like personal defense attorneys for these politicians, because in this situation here, if a regular person lies on a mortgage form under oath, they're going to be facing a lot of issues. They're going to be facing some time in jail. They're going to face some federal charges. But when Letitia James does it, MSNBC runs a sympathy segment for her, and it looks like the New York Times calling her some kind of hero, some folk hero. So they're not just spinning the story, they're running interference for someone caught in a paper trail of perjury, a paper trail of just making stuff up. So last month, MSNBC ran a whole segment where they basically said she's being attacked because she's a strong black woman. That sounds very reminiscent to the super mayor. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves because you're talking to a black woman that's in power. For the criticism of Letitia James is not because she's a strong black woman, is that she made contradictory sworn statements, lied on federal documents, and used her own staff to witness the whole damn thing. Again, allegedly. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that people are saying that she's being politically persecuted. So in this article here, the New York Times stepped in like her personal PR crisis team and dropped basically about 2,400 words of fancy fluff with no legal receipts. So we checked out some of this stuff. Letitia James made a lot of mistakes. She set herself up to be targeted by Trump. She got caught by her own paper trail. So let's get into it. Before we break down this New York Times gymnastics routine, let's take a step back and talk about the situation with the MSNBC May 10th segment, because I didn't talk about it when it happened. Because when they aired it, it wasn't really journalism. It was just a straight up spin story. MSNBC is a left-leaning news site, right? It's similar to, you say Fox News is right-leaning, CNN is left-leaning, MSNBC is left-leaning. It's really difficult to find one that's actually down the middle. If you know any, let me know in the comments below what news sites that you believe are straight down the middle, because I don't know any of them. But this situation was straight up spin. It was a full-blown PR defense dressed up as news. Instead of walking viewers through the evidence, they built a emotional political story to protect Letitia James from the very real federal criminal scrutiny.
The merits of what James is being accused of aside for the moment, what is your takeaway when prosecutors are explicitly saying there is a political component to the investigation into her?
Well, it's shocking. She's being attacked and persecuted for doing her job, which is prosecuting someone who committed a crime like Donald Trump did. I mean, this doesn't happen in a real democracy.
From the jump, calling James the first target of what she framed as Trump's political revenge, they even aired a clip of James dramatically stating,
"This is nothing more than an extension of his revenge, his retribution, and he finally got up to the J's. And so I stand prepared to respond to these baseless attacks with facts."
And just like that, MSNBC tried to shut the whole case before presenting a single fact. But here's what they left out, and you're going to see why that matters. Before we jump into the spin cycle that is MSNBC's coverage, I got to shout out today's sponsor, Chapter. If you're 55 or older, or helping someone who is, dealing with Medicare plans can feel like trying to decode a mortgage documents written in Klingon. That's where Chapter comes in. They help you find the best Medicare plan for your needs. No upsells, no commission-based trickery, just real, unbiased advice from licensed experts. And the best of all, it's free. Whether you're retiring, turning 65, or just sick of the confusing TV commercials, you'll be talking to a real person. The help is always free, and folks who have worked with Chapter have saved over $1,100 a year on average. Call 262-454-0419. Again, that number is 262-454-0419. Call Chapter today and save. Now, let's get back into it. So MSNBC didn't just fail to ask questions, they just actively built a false frame. The real investigation didn't come from Trump. It came from someone else. It came from basically independent investigative journalists, the ones that were checking out with white collar fraud. The main journalists pushing these facts are registered Democrats, but MSNBC never mentioned that. Why? Because the facts didn't fit the narrative. They never talked about the power of attorney, the email contradictions, the financial disclosures, or the grand jury now convened in Virginia. They knew the evidence. They just didn't want you to see it.
The idea that Donald Trump has weaponized the entire federal government against all of his enemies and opponents, from the law firms that represented his political opponents to the federal officials that have prosecuted him for his spreadsheet of crimes that he's committed. I mean, this is shocking, and we're only 5 months in My real question is, where does this go?
We're talking about sworn federal contradictions written in email, false statements to a financial institution, and undisclosed property on her legally required financial disclosures. That is a 30-year felony. This is not a parking ticket. MSNBC did not talk about the August 2nd, 2023 email where she said, "I will never be a Virginia resident." They didn't talk about the August 17 power of attorney where she declared under oath, "I intend to occupy this property as my primary residence." They didn't talk about the two government staffers that were there signed as witness to the sworn lie. They didn't talk about the missing mortgage disclosures for her properties. They didn't talk about the fake unit counts that helped her qualify for federal programs that she was legally excluded from. None of that made it on the air. Why? Because MSNBC didn't want to tell a story about mortgage fraud. They wanted to tell a story about political persecution. It's just a double standard. They have no problem talking about Letitia James and that big judgment against Trump, misstating real estate info to get better financial terms. I guess that's something they don't really care about. But let's get to the main event. So if MSNBC was the warm-up act, the New York Times was the main performance. So on June 11th, they published this 2,400-word article. This is Jonah E. Bronrich, titled, "She Relishes Being Trump's Nemesis. Now he is out for revenge." So the whole thing just was positioned like some kind of Netflix political drama, but here's the problem. None of this article holds up to actual scrutiny. So I'm not going to read the entire article. I'll let you know the gist of it, but just some of the stuff right here. So given Ms. James' long-running investigation into his assets, Mr. Trump has been similarly fixated on her. He has attacked her on social media for years, and in the last few months alone called her a totally corrupt politician and a wacky crook. Mr. Trump has long pledged to get even with his enemies, and now 6 months into his second term, the role of the Justice Department in making good on those pledges has become increasingly clear. So the Times paints James as the hero in the revenge saga, the brave woman who stood up to Trump and is now paying the price. But this article does not break anything down. Any of the accusations, they just state them and just keeps it moving. They didn't say anything. They didn't talk about the criminal referral. They didn't talk about the fact that it came from a private citizen. That referral was sent to DOJ back in April 14th. It wasn't based on a like or dislike or the vibes in the room. It was about the sworn statements that were basically contradictions, the emails, the witnesses, all the mortgage stuff, all the stuff we talked about on this channel. They left all that out. It was a recap of some sorts. I'm actually pretty annoyed because I had to subscribe to New York Times to even read this entire thing. They just pointed out and said, well, the reason why this is happening because she went after Trump and got that big judgment out of Trump. That's it. Really? That's all there is to say? The Times described James' power of attorney as just a form. It's not just a form. It's not some harmless checkbox that you miss. This was a sworn statement recorded in Virginia. It stated, "I hereby declare that I intend to occupy this property as my principal residence." Capital letters, bold, under penalty of perjury. And 15 days before signing out, she told her broker, "This property will not be my primary residence. I will never be a Virginia resident." That is textbook mortgage fraud. And I know I sound like a broken record, but when James signed that document, 2 high-ranking staff from the AG office watched her sign it. We talked about that in the video as well. It was Jennifer Levy. That was her first Deputy Attorney General, and Rashona Parchment. That's another staff member from the Attorney General. These women weren't clueless interns. They're attorneys. They watched the AG commit a federal crime under oath, allegedly, and now their names are attached to it. I wonder how they feel. They're probably pretty annoyed. If a grand jury subpoenas them, what are they gonna say? That they didn't read the document? That they didn't know she told her broker the opposite thing? It doesn't matter. It proves premeditation. It proves that this was planned, not an accident. The Times wrote this like it was a maybe someday probe, but there's already a grand jury in Virginia. There's also a FBI investigation in New York. Several federal jurisdictions are already involved. So why does the Times keep acting like this is just speculative? Oh, this is just some rumors. Because it makes their narrative work better in James' favor. And even right here in the part of the article, this Mr. Lowell is James' attorney. He sent the U.S. Attorney General, Pam Bondi, documents saying that Ms. James has expressly told the mortgage broker that she would not use the property as her primary residence. The documents also has showed that the broker had responded to acknowledge that Ms. James will not be living there. Basically, her lawyer just admitted the crime. Her own lawyer said proof of her intent to lie. That is not a defense. That's literally a confession. The Times also act like this was just a isolated slip. It's not. James has misrepresented property units. hidden mortgage on official disclosures and have used fraudulent forms since 1982. That's about, what, 43 years ago? Crazy. Even the New York Times' article said there was little public record to help people understand the case. That's just a lie by omission. There's tons of stuff. The allegations, which Miss James' lawyer, Abe D. Lowell, has said are stale, threadbare, and long disproved, that's not true, echo those that Miss James pursued against Mr. Trump with the important difference of scale. She argues that the president has garnered hundreds of millions of dollars in ill-gotten gains. The cumulative value of James' property is less than $2 million. That doesn't matter. Mortgage fraud is mortgage fraud regardless if you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars or $2 million. Quote, this is following the playbook of his retribution campaign, Mr. Lowell said. It takes nothing to begin an investigation, but doesn't mean that there's anything to investigate. Well, you don't know when you start, and then you realize there's tons of stuff that you find during an investigation, like we see here with Letitia James. Other Times jump in and says, little has emerged to guide public understanding of the inquiry. Just go on YouTube or go to whitecollarfraud.com. You'll get a series of articles you can read with documents, with the receipts. The evidence against Letitia James is pretty damning. Miss James' lawyers said they have seen few signs that the investigation was progressing, with little indication of subpoenas or witness interviews. All this is public record, and they are just ignoring everything. I mean, this was just a complete waste of my time reading it, but it just shows that the media is going to tell you this is about revenge. You know, it's possible that two things could be correct at once. If Letitia James didn't lie on these mortgage forms, didn't have all these issues, there'll be no way for Trump to get revenge. When you look at the documents, the emails, the sworn forms, the missing disclosures, it's not revenge, it's evidence. Letitia James didn't get caught in a misunderstanding. She got caught because the story she told in public is different from the one that she swore under penalty of perjury. And that's why most likely she will get indicted. And unless something dramatic happens, I don't think she's going to be able to get away with this one. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. If you like this type of content, and as we follow Letitia James and her nonsense, hit the like button, subscribe so you don't miss any of these videos. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.